Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting of April 8th, 2019. Tonight we have, we'll be holding our public informational hearing, which we annually have to satisfy the requirements of Mass State law. We have most of our committee members here. Gary Fowler on my right here, starting on this side. Gary Fowler from the Board of Selectmen, the appointee from the Board of Selectmen. Paul Nelson, sitting to his left, is from the Affordable Housing Trust. We have Peter Burns. Peter Burns next to me is the vice chair of this board, as well as the appointee from the Open Space Committee. I'm Harry Locatilia. I'm an appointee from the Planning Board. We have James Demento, chairman and appointee from the Park and Rec Commission. And we have, what's your name again?
Come on, say it loud, say it proud, you know, Harry.
Come on, no, I can read. Oh, Rachel Bancroft, from the appointee from the Conservation Commission.
One more too.
And we have one more person joining us tonight. His name is Ed Doobie, and Ed joins us from the
Income.
Finance and Advisory Committee.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Neil.
Hi, Ed. Without any further ado, the meeting's called to order at 7:30. Looks like 7:33, 7:34, somewhere around there. And what we'll do tonight, first we want to open the public hearing. As I said, this is by law is a public hearing, not a meeting. So if anyone would
Make motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jim Demento to open the public hearing. It was seconded by Rachel Bancroft. Is there any discussion?
Okay.
Looks like you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. Sounds like the motion carried unanimously. And with that being said, what we'll do now is we will go to the Preservation Committee projects. We have a little slideshow here. We'll start it all off, do an introduction. There's a list of folks that will be, list of projects that will be represented by the folks in the audience and on the board. And, I hope you enjoy the show. And without any further ado, I think that starts it. Here we go, Georgetown Community Preservation. And if we can,
Should the TV go to the screen?
I think it did.
Okay, good. There
I
we
think it
go.
did, except that key over is now fading away, and it's a beautiful thing. And so, community preservation, we have the three core categories for community preservation. Those are community housing, historic preservation, and open space. Open space after 2012 includes not only the preservation and protection of conservation lands and open spaces, but active recreational component too. Fields, soccer fields, things such as that. Every year by law, all of our receipts, we have to take 10% of them at a minimum and put 10% in each one of those three categories I just mentioned. So, pretty easy. We do that by a minimum. We reserve those right at the very beginning. Those are the first warrant articles that you hear at town meeting. We do those reservations right up front, and then after the fact, then because the folks at town meeting are the ones that actually decide yay or nay on these projects, the money either comes out of the reserve or comes out of the undesignated funding. Is that clear? Is that clear? Sort of? Not really? Yeah, kind of? You'll catch up. Once the reservations are made, the voters decide whether to approve or reject, and the local committee has recommended, and that's all we do, is we recommend these projects. We filter out the ones that we don't think deserve the money. We are fiduciaries of the fund. Little addition to those 10% categories. Back in 2013, a bond was floated by vote of town meeting against the CPA monies. That was for the high school fields, the turf fields, if you remember, and for a conservation restriction at Wheelerbrook Farm. It's like 1.3 million or something. This year, what we're gonna be doing is we'll be asking you to take care of the debt service for that, as we have for the last 5 years? We've been doing it for 5 years now, something like that. And we'll do that at the same time that the 10% appropriations are made. This year, it's a lower amount at $64,211.71. It's an odd number. You're used to seeing $250,000 here, 200,000 there, as in the years past. But this is the number because now this number represents the final payment. We're done. We are technically done because the bond was for 8 years, which was out of our control. But if the town meeting voters approve this $64,211.71, and I'm gonna play that number, then what happens is we have all of the monies necessary to pay off the bond in 2023 or whenever it is that it actually gets paid off in an account already set aside with the treasurer's office. So, let's move on. Yeah, this year in the public meetings that we held, we reviewed suggested projects all over the place. Out of those projects, the CPC's recommended the following projects. And we begin with the community housing category project. And that first one will be the Affordable Housing Trust CPC grant. And I'll let Paul Nelson take it from here.
Okay.
Paul, you're gonna have to tell me, I don't have this on a timer.
Right,
I'm
leave it
sorry.
there for just a second.
Cool.
Okay. Basically, the whole purpose of Georgetown Affordable Housing Trust is to literally create affordable housing. We want to do that by buying, selling, renting, whatever is necessary to actually get housing that people can actually afford. I'll get into some numerical details a little bit later on. We get funds as a block grant from CPC. We also get money from the planning board through the inclusionary bylaw, which sometimes works really well and sometimes not so well. But those are the two prime sources of income for us. We function kind of like as a bank too, because there's been times when we've actually helped Trestle Way out when they kind of ran out of money when we were building their ramp and things like that. It is literally a bank. We can buy, sell, borrow, all those kinds of things. We tend not to do it because we probably aren't equipped with the talent to do that. See.
Oh, next one?
Yep.
Sorry.
So the mission is basically, like I said, create affordable housing as required in the 2017 housing production plan. I suspect nobody here has read the housing production plan yet. Oh, very good, very good, very good. It's actually, it's a demographic analysis of the town, where it's been, where it's going, and even a bit of a roadmap on how to get there. The only problem that we run into is when they come up with a plan like that, they assume that there's always money to do everything that needs to be done. And that's just clearly not the case. So we stumble along as best we can. Let's see. And in the housing production plan, we try to maintain the status of the current affordable houses. We want to capitalize on any kind of opportunities that might pop up to do additional housing. And a lot of times they'll materialize and then kind of like disappear again. It's kind of funny. Buying real estate or even looking at putting houses together is really a complex process. Right now they estimate it's, on the conservative side, $250 a square foot to build a house. And so it gets very difficult to put money together, to put together anything more than a small house. We also run something called the Rental Assistance Program, which is one of our ways of creating temporary affordable housing. That is, we actually subsidize the rent for people who are spending more than 30% of their income on housing, much like the algorithms that HUD uses. And let's see, and further we try to investigate the opportunities of partnerships and things like that. That's actually, this year, that's starting to look halfway decent. We are actually starting to work with a developer. In fact, the developer that did Palmer Lane, he was very enthusiastic about working with us on maybe another development. The idea is to find some land. In this case, it looks like we'll probably put together a 40B, which is a a way of actually getting 25% affordable housing in a development. It's DHCD type sponsored type program. Let's see, is anyone else I miss? We also work with Habitat for Humanity.
Do you want the next slide, Paul?
Not yet, not yet. I think, does that have any, let's see, two,
I can go back if it's wrong.
I
go
think
forward?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I just got more notes that are not up there.
Then it's on.
Yeah, on the Habitat, we've been working about 3 years with them trying to get something going in Georgetown, and it's been very difficult. They committed to doing something by 2020, but they committed several times before and it never materialized, so we're just kind of like moving on ahead. And Habitat is broken into segments, so we're in a geographic area that's out of Lawrence as opposed to maybe North Shore or something like that. Go ahead. One of the reasons that we've really had major issues is that basically there used to be an affordable housing trust and an affordable housing task force. The task force kind of like fizzled away a number of years ago, and consequently there has been just enough interest and I guess boots on the ground to keep the RAP program going and not much else. And currently what we have managed to do though is we managed to hire an administrative person. In fact, she's sitting right back there. And since then I found my workload has dropped off tremendously. And we have somebody that all she has to do is look for opportunities. And if you go through the Zillow, you can find what looks like a lot of good ones, but most of them turn out to be, not good leads. We're looking at one right now where the big problem is we can't find the septic tank for this particular place. And without a septic tank, clearly we can't do anything. So it gets really interesting in trying to find something. But that's what this Diana is doing. Let's see. One of the things that we're supposed to be doing, if you look at it, is actually trying to maintain the current number of houses we have on the subsidized housing inventory. And this year we managed to lose 4 and picked up 2. And the way that works is a number of the houses are state-owned group homes. And when people go away from there, they don't tell us, they just disappear off the SHI. And that happened. What we did do though is we picked up two houses on Lisa Lane, one which we rent through the Affordable Housing Trust, and the other one which is a unit that was actually sold as an affordable unit to a young couple. So we only lost 2. In Georgetown, it turns out because we have Longview, all 186 units in Georgetown or in Longview are considered affordable. So we stay above, we're about 11.6%. If you drop below 10%, then you're liable to get hit with what they call an unfriendly 40B, where they'll put something where you don't necessarily want it and they'll get away with it. But we tend to do, because we have actually 11.6%, we can actually just delve into friendly 40Bs where they're doing the same thing we want to do. Let's see. So, yeah. And let's see. On the housing production plan, we are right now, there's like 48 families that are living below the poverty level in Georgetown, which doesn't sound good, but it's actually much better than if you look at the stats for the rest of the state, it's pretty good. But there is a real demand for housing. And if you look at, if anybody takes the Globe, there's been a number of articles in there for building affordable housing. Baker's got a plan, but what he wants to do is just put housing in around 128 for the commuting people that are going into Boston. And clearly that doesn't help us at all. So we are trying to do our own thing. There's a heavy demand for starter houses. There's demand for elderly to be able to stay here without actually having to go anywhere, or having to move to a housing facility or something like that. So there's lots of demand. And the interesting thing is you would think that you'd want to sell somebody a house, but that's really not what you want to do when people are just getting off the ground. You want to rent it to them because generally they don't have the finances in place to maintain a house. So rentals work out much, much better, but they're a tougher sell, both at the local level. If you say you want to put a rental into next to somebody's house, they're generally not keen on that. So it's a tough sell, but it's really where you need to be to get people going. And this one, this is interesting. This is out of the housing production plan, one of the demographic features we've got. The interesting thing on this one, well, there's a number of them, but if you look at the top line, rent burdened means that somebody is spending greater than 30% of their income on their rental, or their house, whatever it happens to be. Severely burdened means that they're doing over 50%. So if they're bringing in $30,000 a year, they're spending $15,000 on rent, which, given the fact that the 2-bedroom units over in Longview go for almost $2,000, is not hard to hit. In fact, finding units that are less than $1,000 is really, really tough. So what we come up with, if you look at the rent burdened, you go on, let's see, you go from 24% in 1980 to 35% in the 2000 census to like 51% of people that are rent burdened. It's actually, yeah, 51% of the renters, right, are rent burden. If you look at that, it doesn't look good, but if you look at the state and the Essex County, we're pretty much nominally the same, maybe a little bit higher, but not much. So we're pretty much the standard of what it is in the rest of the state and the rest of the Essex County. And Georgetown used to be much better, but Georgetown has grown a lot, and most of the houses that went in are not the kind that anybody that just starting out can afford to buy. So, yep. So the charter actually allows us to do bank-like fiduciary things. We can do buy, sell, loan, that kind of thing. We've done that with the Housing Authority for a couple times, and we use that for the upkeep of some of the affordable housing and for purchasing houses and land. That we haven't really been very good at yet. We've been best at the rental assistance program, but this year with the extra, if you will, boots on the ground, I think we're going to actually get some housing done. We actually are, the people that put in Palmer Lane, we got acquainted with them, and they were very enthusiastic about sitting down with us and doing a development together. So we're looking at right now a property that could easily end up with something like 7 duplexes in it. And that would be a 40B, it would be a friendly 40B. It's just at the talking stage right now. I've sent some rudimentary plans to the DHCD people that deal with 40Bs, but that's where it is right now until we get more information. But that's the kind of thing we would like to do. And before, since we A, didn't have anybody doing these things for ourselves, and B, didn't have a lot of insight into what the development industry was like, we were stuck with things like 34 East Main, where the Harbor Light Communities people looked at it and said it'll take $3 million to reconstruct that. And we didn't have that. And in fact, that would end up with units that were $500,000 a piece that you could only rent for $500 or $600. It just wasn't a feasible deal. Let's see. So, last one? Okay. So the directions we're doing is, now that we have our admin person hired and working, and we're establishing a working arrangement with the developers of Palmer Lane, the idea is to get something done. This year, we really want to spend some money and get some housing started. Probably won't finish it this year, but we really want to get the money doing something other than just sitting in the bank. The 40B at 34 East Main is probably very marginal. My guess is we probably won't do anything with that. We looked at, we went down to the DHCD with a representative from the from Mr. Olson's company, And what I suggested was that we did it together, like we didn't buy the property and then try to do something. Both Olson and us would actually do a joint development, and then at the end, you'd take your share of the profits, if there were any. And that just it just fell through, so that didn't go anywhere either. So that one, we're probably not gonna go too far, but we do have a couple other things that we're looking at that I think, if A, we can find a septic system, and B, we can get that 40B going, we'll probably have some activity here that'll be worth another property at least, maybe more. And let's see. Habitat, like I say, they're very, very slow. I don't see anything happening there. There was a piece of land that they wanted to build on, but I can't even get them to give me a letter of a commitment to say that we will build by X, Y, and Z. And you really can't buy land on speculation, not with town money. That would be foolish. So that's about it. Are there any questions? Nope.
I just have one.
Sure.
You mentioned the Dunbar Cabin.
Yes.
And that's a 40B.
Right.
And so when, even without the involvement of the trust,
Right.
when that gets built, is that a 20 or a 25% commitment?
25%.
25%.
But the problem with that, it's so economically infeasible or unfeasible to do that. That's the one that'll cost $3 million to reconstruct,
No, I meant when the developer that.
if somebody ever does it.
Oh, if it moves forward, so if
Right.
it does happen.
If it does happen, they have to do 25%,
of
right?
those,
2 units,
2 units out of the.
Right,
out of
8.
The 8 will
yeah.
go to the town. Good, great.
I got a question. Whereabouts is Palmer Lane?
Palmer Lane is if you drive down 133 and you get off on Tenny and make a fast left, it's right there.
Okay,
It used to be 210,
okay,
Right.
right at the beginning, right at the
Yeah.
split there.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Going once, going twice? Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. We'll move along to our next one now. And we will, would you folks mind coming up and introducing yourself as a public meeting? Public hearing. If you could introduce yourself for the audience and for the record.
Yep. My name's David Hooley. I'm a project manager that works with the Housing Authority and oversee projects up to $50,000. So the current request we have would be a project that I would oversee for the Housing Authority.
Great, and I see, you want to introduce your friend there?
Diane Drynan, Executive Director of Housing Authority.
Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Please, take it away. But you have to tell me when you want to move the slide. I'm
Yep,
sorry.
absolutely. So this slide just has 2 pictures on it. The one on the left shows our current existing light fixtures. There's 33 fixtures throughout the property. Some of the lenses are faded or cracked, and they have mercury vapor bulbs in them. So the goal of this project is to replace the fixtures with a very similar looking fixture that is LED bulb inside of it, and a lot more energy efficient, as well as the lenses direct the light better towards the ground and less of an overspray of light that just shines in the residents' windows. We direct it better to the ground than the current lights we have. So, next slide. This is a little spec sheet on the lights we're going to be getting. You'll notice that we circled 3000 Kelvin. That's the acceptable lighting level. It will significantly improve the lighting on the property from what we have now, as well as not cause a significant light pollution issue for any of the neighbors to the development. The existing lights poles will be painted by the Housing Authority staff. Some of them are rusty, and then electrician will come in, remove the existing heads, recycle the bulbs, dispose of them properly, and install the new LED fixtures on the existing poles. The heads do have photo cells on them. Some of our lights currently are on timers, so you gotta maintenance to go out and change them for daylight savings times, or if the power goes out, the timer's not running. So you all of a sudden you realize some of the lights aren't on for 3 hours after dark. So the photo cells will definitely help with that to ensure that the lights are on for the residents at all times. So. Yes.
What about the current, the amount of amperage that's required for the old lamps versus the new ones? Anybody done a study on that, or?
There is a price sheet here, or a cost savings worksheet. It doesn't figure out how many amps we'll save. However,
Or
the
watts.
LEDs definitely use less power. You'll notice at the top, the third row down, the current bulbs are 250 watt bulbs. The new proposed LEDs are 45 watt bulbs. So they use significantly less power. The number that's circled, the $4,741, is the annual energy savings that will help the housing authority to be able to improve other elements of the property, as well as continue to support the residents. So we have a payback on this project, if you're looking for a return on investment, of 5.03 years. It reduces the carbon emissions by 77.26 tons. So it's, it's better for everyone. Definitely increase the comfort for the residents, a lot better lighting for walking around some of the paths and trails or sidewalks that we have throughout the development that go from one building to the next are kind of in wooded areas. So this will definitely help provide a better experience for the residents as well.
Very good.
The final map just shows every little yellow dot is a light fixture. So kind of if you look towards the center, you can see those 4 buildings. A lot of them look like the lights are just out in the woods. Those are actually walkways that connect the buildings. So if a resident in that first building all the way to the right wants to come to the community building and it starts to get dark, they can walk through the paths, and they're lit now, but this new lighting will definitely improve the visibility for them as they're walking through the sidewalks of the property.
Sounds like it's gonna be much safer,
Yes.
much safer.
So
Does any of the board, do any of the board members have questions? Does anyone from the audience have any questions? Now's your chance.
I just have a question, that if you see all the yellows,
yeah.
are there lights that go from the main road to the first yellow light there? Are those town lights?
If there are any, they're on the telephone poles, and they're
Okay.
yeah.
I was saying someone wants to get to the main road, was that,
There's regular street lights
Okay,
on
to
the
that point.
telephone poles in there.
Yeah, leading up into that point.
okay, no, that's good,
Because just off to the right as well, there's, I think is it 2 houses right there?
yeah,
So that's kind of the more public
okay.
part of the road there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And moving along, we come to our historical category projects. And the very first is the historic documents preservation. And would you please state your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Sarah Cognata. I'm the library director at the Georgetown PBD Library. So
So
I
let me
am,
know when you want to move the.
okay. You can move that one right now.
Okay.
So I'm here for the newspaper digitization project. So just to give you a background on this project, so since 2006, the Georgetown Historical Commission has advocated to preserve our community records, reports, and documents for public viewing, easy access, and permanent storage using digital scanning technologies. And these projects have been managed by the Georgetown PBD Library with guidance from the Georgetown Historical Commission while using outside vendors for support, such as Northern Micrographics, which is the company we've been using for the microfilming and digitizing. And approximately 80,000 pages of documents between 1874 and 2008 have been microfilmed and digitized, and that has been the annual town reports in the Georgetown newspapers. So just as another background, to get the microfilms, you would have to go to the Georgetown Public Library when we're open. They're in a local history room. But if you wanted to see the scanned historical documents, you can go to our website, georgetownpl.org. And the picture on the right, that is our part of our website. So you would click the About tab, and then you would go down to Georgetown Records, click on that, and then the picture to your left is what shows up. So that's pretty much all the historical documents we've had scanned and digitized. So as you can tell, we have the annual reports and the newspapers. They're both separated. And you can browse by title, which is more so for the newspapers because the newspapers had different names back then. So the Georgetown Weekly, Georgetown Record, Georgetown Advocate, the Blunderbust, I think, was one back in the day.
Check that one out.
So one of the things you can do is you can also do a simple search with that. So what I actually did is when I did a simple search, I put in Georgetown PBD Library, and anything that has those three keywords, I guess it's a keyword search, would pop up, and it would highlight what you were looking for. So the picture on the left is when the new renovation and building were opened, and that was the Georgetown Record newspaper. And then the picture on the right is an annual town report back in 1905 that was the creation of the building on Maple Street or
So
Lincoln Park.
it's not just a picture or an image of a newspaper, it's optically character read, and
Yes.
those words are understood and searchable,
Yes,
which is a
exactly.
phenomenal thing.
Yes,
And that goes all the way back.
yes, all the way back.
What a tool.
And then, so my request for this year is we hope to microfilm and digitize the Georgetown record issues from 2009 to 2019, and we will continue to use the company we have used in the past, Northern Micrographics. About 20,000 pages total will be filmed and scanned, and the digitization uses an optical character recognition process, which creates PDF files for each scanned page. And then the company will convert all archival files to a searchable Res Carta compliant files, and we'll load it to the hosted website that you just saw pictures of. So for the total cost for that, that's the $16,234.50. I think that might have got cut off, but that's okay. So when I presented this to you all, there was a concern or a question that arose about whether microfilming was still necessary. So what I did is I sent an inquiry out to all Massachusetts libraries, and I had 14 respond back to me, and I also received input from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners Preservation Specialists. Everyone stated that microfilming is still considered the gold standard for preservation. There were some that do both. There were some that just do scanning. It just depended on, their budget and all that. But one quote I'd like to mention is, microfilming is a tried and true preservation method. While digitizing, while great for access, still is not a preservation method. Yes, digitized matter can be migrated, but for now at least it would be wise to continue with both media.
And that's what we're basically doing
Yes, still doing both.
right
So that's all I have.
now. And sorry to rush the slide there. Thank you so much. Any questions from the board members?
So it is interesting though, when you do an optical search, you still end up with a digital diagram or a digital document, a PDF.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you
Fine,
don't
this
see
is-
the, oh, go ahead.
This is the one time that we procrastinated and it helped because having the character recognition is new, and a lot of people who got on board real early have to rescan everything to get that.
Oh, to get the
So us
OCR.
being last actually finally has helped us because everything we have recognizes characters. So you can put in your name or your family's name or your uncle's name, and everything pertaining to him that's in town will show up.
From all the papers back to
All the papers. It's
1700s.
pretty-
It's
pretty-
phenomenal. It's a
Pretty,
phenomenal thing.
it's a lot of fun actually for the first half hour at least.
Are there any questions from the audience? Anybody out there? Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And the next is Union Cemetery gravestone restoration. And Gloria, would you
that's us.
please come up and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gloria Swanbon, and I'm representing the Historical Commission tonight. So we're asking for funds to continue on the project for Union Cemetery. Back several years ago, a master plan was developed, and we completed phase one. As you face the cemetery, portion onto your left is the part that has already where the stones have been restored, and they really look nice. You can look at it, and then when you turn your eye to the other side, you can see that we need to continue. So anyway, there are about 75 stones that need to be in phase two, that need to be repaired, or the foundations need to be repaired. They need to be put upright. We're going to hopefully do this last year, and then the question came up about some large trees that are in the center of this area that we're planning to restore, and whether or not we should remove them because the stones around them have all been uplifted from the roots from these huge trees that continue to grow and do damage. So with your suggestions, we went back and looked and have done some more research, and we had some folks come in and look at it, and we were able to get prices to remove the large trees We will be working with Fanning, the contractor who did the other work. We will also work with an arborist because our plan now is to replace what we remove. And I think we can do a better job and have a better product at the end. So that's our plan for now. Hopefully you'll approve the funds now that we've expanded our plan to include removing those trees. As you drive by, you'll see they're right in the center of that midsection of the cemetery. And they are doing damage to the stones. They're uplifting the foundation. You know, the foundations are between the frost and the roots from the trees. I'm not so sure they could actually repair them the way they're sitting now. So this will be phase 2, and then later on we'll go with phase 3. We will use the same contractor. That's what they do. That's their job. So they're really good at it. We're satisfied with the phase 1 project. They did a great job. They still look good. So that's what we'd like to do.
And are there any questions? Are you all set?
I'm sorry?
Are you all set?
Yeah.
I've sort of lost track.
Unless
I'm very
somebody has
sorry.
other questions.
Um,
It's kind of a continuation of the project, and,
Yeah, absolutely. It looks great down there. The part that they did look very nice.
right.
Are there any questions from the board members?
No, like I said,
I just had a comment, and I appreciate the historical commission looking at the issue with the trees, because, you know, nobody likes to chop down big trees, but given the amount of time and effort and funding that we put into restoring the gravestones, which is a huge benefit to the town, it just would have been a shame if those things came down in a storm and caused some kind of damage. So I think that was really a great idea for you to kind of think about how to mitigate that and make sure that we can not put all this money into the gravestones and then have them get
True.
damaged again. So I think that's, and to have the planting plan too, I think that's really a great idea. So thank you for that.
I mean, how many cemetery had a tree come down and knocked out a couple of graves? I mean, the trees do make the cemeteries look nice. I mean, I kind of miss the tree that went down.
Yeah.
But you can probably plan it like in a way that mitigates those issues, you know?
Yeah.
So then, I'm glad you also said you might try to put some others up, because down by the building supply, all the way to the center of town, they've cut down so many trees, and all you see in the winter
Yeah.
is telephone poles and wires. I think this town's gonna start thinking about replacing some trees in the next
Well,
20 years.
Part of our plan is to work with an arborist. I mean, obviously, we need them to help us with the removal and then to guide us
Yeah.
in what we should put in there that won't overgrow, that won't be invasive, and
Like a weeping
will
willow.
just enhance the, the cemetery and not create havoc
Right.
10 years down the road.
Yeah,
That's true.
it's good planning.
Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, being none, Gloria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And the next project is the restoration of the Brocklebank, and that's the Brocklebank L, I believe, but it's all the Brocklebank Museum. And Betsy, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the.
Betsy Moran, the incoming president of the Georgetown Historical Society. And this year we came in with a request for $16,000, and it's to do some roof repairs to the L portion of the house, which when the main part of the house, the roof was done, that L was not touched. You can see on the left-hand corner, we just slipped a board under there when we first found the hole in it. So we'll put up the same quality and the same reveal on the cedar shakes. We've also found a new product that goes under them, prevent the shakes from curling. It's called a cedar breather. We'll also at the same time do the shoe shop. You can see there's a lot of wear on the back of that. In the front, because it faces south, there's a lot of curling of those cedar shingles, and that new material will help prevent that. So we're looking at somewhere between a 30 and 40-year-old repair. So I won't be asking for any more funds from you for that. So
Ed, you wanna got on record.
I know. Be warned, I remember those things.
That's fine, because chances of me coming back in 30 or 40 years are slim and none. The second part we want to do is to replace the windows in the attic. On the left-hand side, that window, because of the way it faces, is completely dry rotted. I'm surprised with the wind we've had lately that it's still in there, although I recently checked and it is. And it's also not historically accurate to the rest of the windows in the house. On the right-hand side, the attic window appears to be historically accurate, but over the years, someone went in and cut it, trying to create some ventilation. None of these windows open, by the way, which the new ones will. So there's 3 attic windows, 2 are heavily dry rotted, and the one that has been cut. So we're gonna go in and may involve a little bit of framing and stuff, because I'm not sure when those windows were put in. We couldn't find any documentation, but they clearly need to be replaced.
They look like they are double hung, but they just won't open?
Yeah.
Huh.
The frame, if you tried it, the frame would probably,
Fall apart?
yeah, and then would be using Gorilla Glue to.
Don't try it unless you have the money.
And this is not the center historical chimney. This is the one that was put in at some point for heat. But some of the lead flashing on it, we found it. We started working on the property last year and we found the pieces of lead. So that repair will also be done just to prevent water from getting in the house, because that would be a major problem if water gets in, whether it's through bad windows or the leaky roof or flashing issue. So the repair to the flashing that we requested, like I said, is not on that historic chimney, the center chimney. That's in the back. You have to kind of look around the corner to see that chimney. So that was our request. And
Sorry, jumped ahead there.
that's okay.
You all
Any
set?
questions? I am.
Questions from the board? Want a reminder that she said she's never gonna ask?
I'll
for
sign it if you want. I'll be 100 years old. I'm not coming back and asking for another roof.
Ed is going to live that long just for that
I'll be
reason.
asking for a roof, but I won't know where it's going.
Out of spite.
Out of spite.
Are there any questions from the audience? That being none, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
And the next, now we finished up with the historical category projects, and we'll be moving to the open space. And the next one is the Pearly recreational area. If you two folks would be kind enough to introduce yourself, because I'm sure no one knows you.
We'll be happy to. Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Jacobs, the superintendent of schools.
Mike Anderson, School Department.
Well, thank you for having us come in tonight. You know, Mike and I are going to tag team here because Mike's done a lot of background work on this, and I want to make sure that I credit him with that. So what we're looking to do is out in behind the Pearly School, out where there used to be a playground structure when we had the kindergarten and first grade students there. That playground structure actually is now, I believe, on East Main Street, right, Jim? Yep, we donated it when the grade configuration changed so that there could be a nice, it was in great shape, so we donated it to that location. Well, it left a sort of a big space there. And with the senior center there, you know, we've been talking to Colleen about, you know, gee, if we created something out there, what could we do that is a need in the town for, you know, maybe multiple purposes. So we were able to identify that basketball courts, outdoor basketball courts, you know, are in short supply. At one point, we used the lower parking lot at the high school. We had basketball hoops up there, but it just didn't work there. It was also a parking lot. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things crammed into that space. So we began to think about, well, what could we create there? And Colleen was very interested in a shuffleboard area and bocce court, which I didn't know anything about till I got myself educated on that, and then the basketball courts. And so we thought, well, gee, what could we do?
Picnic area.
So, you know, one of the things we talked about is we thought it would be, what are we going to do? Okay, you can keep going here.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You have to-
All right. So basically, we have one of the advantages, we have a space there that nothing's being used for, and if there's a need, we could come up with something creative. One of the things we do wanna do is create a picnic area for the senior center and the community. Colleen has a lot of nice activities where she has barbecues and birthday parties and a lot of those kind of events, and we could also use that, space if the preschool, because we still have the preschool there, if the preschool wanted to go out. We also do some nice intergenerational things, planting projects and things between the seniors and the kids, so, maybe there could be some kind of a nice, so we could have some celebrations out there. But it would be a nice area for the community building. I told you we'd create a shuffleboard, and the community, it's very interesting. I mean, a lot of the people in the community, not just the seniors, have said that that's something that they would like to do. And then, again, the 2 outdoor basketball courts for the community's use.
I saw Jimmy playing shuffleboard just the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
So,
You can switch it. You can switch it.
so what will we need to complete the project? So, keep going, Harry.
I'm working on it.
I know,
It's
you're
slow.
doing good.
It's slow like the
So
clicker.
we need hot top for the 2 basketball courts and the outdoor shuffleboard. So just to back up our plan, and we're gonna get to that as we kind of buzz through this, but one of the great things about Georgetown is that departments like to work together, are willing to work together. And so, we've been blessed and fortunate in the town to have built some nice partnerships with people. So, one of the things we were able to do is bring Peter Durkee into the discussion, because he's helped us a lot in the past with sort of grading space, and, he's got some tools that we don't have that, he's been willing to come and share with us. So, Peter said, sure, I think we can help you prepare the land, basically grade it and get an initial coat of hot top. He's got the kind of, that stuff he crushes up, or he gets crushed up. And so that's one part of the partnership. And then we started to talk to the light department, because they've also been great partners. I know if you go by the Pembroke School, you see the sign is lit up at the corner, that the light department did that as a community service project. So there's been a number, they donated to our maker spaces, so they've been a really good partner for us. And they came in and said, gee, we'll do the lights, because you really have to have the space lighted, it's very dark out there. So between the two of that saves a lot of money, just in doing that. And we actually have one of our maintenance workers is also an electrician, so he will do the wiring. So it really turned out to be a really nice ability to bring people's skills together. But what is not in that plan, or it was not available for funding, is once all of that work is done on the site and the lights are up, we also have the hoops. We already have the hoops. That we do need to have a coat of hot top that goes on the top of it, so that then you could paint the lines. So we need that, the hot top with the paint. We'd like to put some team benches there, and obviously, if it's gonna be picnic areas, some picnic tables. And then we worked with the Conservation Commission, because it is I wanna say it's in the buffer zone. Yeah, it's in the buffer zone. And so, they were very clear to, where we could and couldn't be, and so we wanna put a fence, just to, mitigate any kind of encroachment to anything there. So the total cost would be $27,656.55 in order to do that. And as I said, if we keep going,
And I just want to say that cost is mainly for supplies, because all the labor is going to be done by town employees.
I know, isn't that great? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And again, everybody came together, I think, in the best interest of the town. It'll be very beneficial to the students in town. It's right next to the main campus of the middle high school. It'll be very helpful to the seniors in the senior center, and then it would be available to just the community at large when it's not being used by other groups. So we wanted to accentuate that one of the big parts of this project is the
Can I ask a
teamwork.
question?
Yeah.
On the basketball hoops, are they gonna be like, in a court where you have 2 ends, with a basket at each end, or will it just be?
Yeah, two
Two
full-size.
full-size courts.
Yeah.
Or 2 full-size, so 4
Yeah.
baskets altogether then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very
The
good.
town might be able to put some tournaments on there. I know the Camp Coy tournament is perhaps interested in using the facility. We actually, our gyms are rented a lot, well, used a lot, necessarily rented a lot, but used a lot from men's basketball leagues, guys in town that, have little pickup games and stuff. So, I think it's an asset, I think, as well, because our gyms aren't always available. So then, just to finally, have a great outdoor area. Again, the age groups, emphasizing, fun and outdoor recreation, which I know the town has made a big commitment to over the years. There's a lot of, as I was talking to people about the work we were doing a little bit with Park and Rec to try to, maybe get a position to sort of help with all of the managing of all of the great things that have been done in town. Obviously, picnic space, outdoor games, I really think the seniors are excited about the bocce and this shuffleboard. And then, again, one of the nice things, as I said, is there's a lot of intergenerational opportunities that go along with that. I mean, we are planning to move forward with some volunteers to at least get a youth rec center on the second floor of Pearlie, so that actually would be an enhancement to that as well. And then maybe there's even more intergenerational opportunities with teens and the seniors. So, and then I think Mike actually found a little picture that just kind of gives you a visual of kind of what we're hoping
Things will look like, yeah.
that would look like. And, as always, we want to thank you for considering our projects.
Any questions from the board? From the board?
I know a lot of people play bocce more than you think, because I know
Yeah.
many years ago, Mike Shea he had passed away. He was part of a group, with his former selectmen, so it's great. I think it's kind of a fun little game, so.
Yeah, I think Colleen thought it would be fun to just, again, have some little tournaments. Apparently, there are different town senior centers that have different groups that play it, so, she was thinking that it could be some kind of a.
I got people playing cricket on Sunday mornings at the park, which is
Well, there you go.
interesting.
That's interesting.
It's funny, all these little games are coming
I
back,
know, yeah.
It's great to get the seniors out playing shuffleboard and stuff, and
Yeah.
that way they're not home playing video
Yeah.
games and stuff. I'm sorry, any questions from the audience? For the public hearing?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
And the next is Peter.
That's me, yeah.
Yeah, would you introduce yourself for the access rehabilitation for Lufkin's Brook
Sure.
Conservation Area?
You bet. I'm Pete Burns. I'm the chair of the Georgetown Open Space Committee, and I'd like to present our proposal for improving access to the Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area, and also to the into the community gardens on Andover Street. I'm going to need some binoculars for that.
It's a problem.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So, but I'll just go off the cuff here. So this is a two-phase project. So just to back up a little bit, the Open Space Committee is responsible for managing the open space, all of our passive and outdoor recreation areas. We just used some CPC funds that we got a few years back, thank you, to develop an open space plan, and also from that to develop a trail linkage analysis to try to go through and identify parcels where we could improve access and link all the different open space areas together in a more of a meaningful way, so that they could be enjoyed and accessed a lot more aptly by the people in town. And so from our trail linkage analysis, some of the things that came out of that were to really kind of focus on some of the main areas in the town that people are using actively and that are really centrally located. And so the first two things we thought of were Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area, which runs from Andover Street all the way to West Street, and then the community gardens, which is a very popular site where people can grow their own vegetables and all that. And that's right at the top of Andover Hill, and it abuts the Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area. So this would be a two-phase project. So the first part would be improving the parking and the access to the Lufkin's Brook to the community gardens, along with a trail access at the bottom of the community gardens plot to access into the Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area. And then the second phase would be to develop and rehabilitate an old access point for Lufkin's Brook further west on Andover Street, to be able to have a parking area with handicap parking and trailhead and better access. So task one, I'll start with that. So improving the parking and the access to the community gardens. We'd be moving the area off the street. Right now, there's only parking right along the shoulder of Andover Street. That everyone knows that's a very busy road, and that's always been sort of a request from people who use that community garden over the years to be able to try to find some way to get that parking off the street. So that will require some removal of some trees and brush on the western side of the gardens. We're going to be able to reuse some of that topsoil that we do, that we take up when we resurface that area for a parking lot, and be able to top off some of the garden plots, so we'll get some fresh soil in there. It's going to be pervious surface, so it's not going to be a paved lot or anything like that. It's all conservation lands that leads into our aquifer and our wells and things like that, so we want to make sure that there's adequate drainage and things, so we'll be using something that works well for that, but that can hold up for parking. And then we're going to have signage and brush clearing for an access point to on the north end of the garden plot. So if you walk from the street down the hill past the gardens, that's where you can get into Lufkin's Brook, but there's really no access there because it's all overgrown and there's no sign or anything like that where anyone would know.
Are they gonna do anything with the parking, or you do anything with the parking where at Lufkin's Brook now? I mean, there's a break in the rails where you can actually drive in there.
Yeah,
There's no place to go, but there's.
yeah, there is. We've done that, and I think I just messed up my presentation.
That spot though, I think that's not the spot, because
should
it's
I
too
be
close to the stream. I think you're going down farther. They're gonna basically, I think,
On the other side of
VFW.
VFW, yeah.
Because the spot you're talking about is too close to the stream, I think, was the concern.
Yeah,
It
I'm
makes
going to
sense,
talk
right?
about all that as soon as we get
Yeah.
queued up again. Sorry, well, Harry, I
Yeah, it's all right.
got ahead of myself here with this thing.
I think we're there. I think that's where you want to be there.
There we go. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So for the Lufkin's Brook project, I'm sorry, for the community gardens project, we are expecting it'll cost about $25,000. So this is for doing removal of trees and brush and stumps, about $11,000 to have a subcontractor come in and do that work to open up an area for parking area. We'll be working with the Conservation Commission and also with Pete Durkee and his crew at the Highway Department. Carol Jacobs mentioned the partnerships here in town and how helpful that's been, and we can point to so many different examples of that, so we're very appreciative of that to make these projects, reasonably priced. So renting an excavator and using that to clear the area. Purchasing the pervious parking materials and the cost of putting it in, about $10,000, and then signage along the road to show everyone that it's the community gardens and point people to where the parking is, and any kind of information that you might want to have up there. We can set up some kind of a sign post and a signage up there. So we're hoping that'll come in at about $25,000. So you can just to give you an idea now, this is the view of the community gardens. If you're standing on Andover Street and looking at the gardens, you can see you're facing north, and you can see where the community gardens are there. And this is looking back toward town on Andover Street, and you can see that's the existing parking area, so it's really just sort of a rough shoulder on the side of the state highway. And there's this little sign in the back. This is back standing facing the community gardens again, but if you look off to the left where those trees are, that's going to be sort of where we're going to grade that out, and you can see it's just some medium-sized trees and some brushy area, so it's not going to be that invasive, and it's just going to be a clearing job there. So that'll open that up, and it'll preserve pretty much the same footprint for the existing garden places, and we'll probably be able to expand those a little bit to make up for anything we might lose. And then if you walk through the community gardens all the way down to the bottom of the hill, that's where Lufkin's Brook comes through. And that's what it looks like right here now. It's all pricker bushes and kind of crazy down there, and there's really no way to get in there or any signage. So if we could just clear some of that out, find where the trail used to be, or create something good that's not invasive, we can do that. We can have a trailhead, and if you walk through there, it looks kind of crazy, but once you get through, I tore up all my pants getting through there to get to this point. But you can see that's really nice mature woods in there. It's a nice place to walk. And if at this point, if you really just walk straight through, at about 3/4 of a mile, you come right out to the West Street Fields parking lot. And so that just gives you access to a whole other part of Lufkin's Brook that really isn't being centrally advertised or made available right now.
Is that a trail right now going through there kind of diagonally?
There's some, people are walking in there, but they're accessing it from different points. But unless you maybe lived in the area or were a kid or something, you might not know where a lot of that is. And so that gets back to our trail linkage analysis that we did to try to give some continuity to some of these green spaces so that you can have a walk and start one place and end up someplace else. So the task 2 is rehabilitating the access points and signage for the Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area. This is an existing point. It really was an old road that went through there, and so Lufkin's Brook is very sort of a disturbed area, if you will, where back in the 50s to get fill and things like that for the highway, it's been dredged out and that type of thing. So it's kind of a interesting landscape in there of piles and divots and things like that in there.
It's in a gravel pit.
Yeah, right. But at one point there was a good road and it's still there, that goes from Andover Street right down through to West Street, and that's the what you were talking about, Paul, where there's those 2 telephone poles there. We've started rehabilitating on that side. So this is a nice high, dry, open spot that will replace the access point on Andover Street, which is farther toward town and on the eastern side of where the VFW is. And we'll have a handicap parking spot there, a new trailhead, and some signage there, so people will be able to see that. And so right as you come across into Georgetown from Boxford, it's right on the left-hand side, so people will be able to see that, and it'll be just a lot more visible and accessible.
The one now is you've got to be going 50 miles an hour and take a sharp turn.
Well, right, and you're taking your life in your hands coming in and out of there. And so I've got a photograph of that I can show. So this phase of the project we're estimating to be $20,000. So that would be getting a subcontractor to remove some trees and stumps and brush, but it's not very extensive removal of material in there. It's fairly open. It's a high spot. It's dry. There's materials for new parking area and the labor costs for about $10,000. Signage along the road and the trailhead, another $1,000, and so totaling $20,000 for that section of the project, that task. So you can see this is the existing access point on Andover Street to Lufkin's Brook that Harry just mentioned. It's really just a cut in the guardrail. There's a single lane access way into here, and it's on a blind curve coming from town toward the VFW on the right-hand side, and it's sort of lost its appeal and lost its, it's just not that an effective access point. There's the existing sign that's there now, and you can kind of see how tight that is and how close to the road, so getting in and out of there isn't necessarily safe, and no one's really used it. So this is the new spot. It's nice and dry and high, and you can remove a few trees and grade it out a little bit. You can have a nice spot for a handicap spot and ample parking, and be able to turn around and not have to back out of there. You can safely access the Andover Street again.
You wouldn't even pave that, right? Just leave
It wouldn't be
natural.
paved. It would probably be maybe some gravel, something in there, because we do want to have a handicap spot. So we'll have to talk to some people to see. Once you get in there, there's an existing trail that goes all the way through to West Street. That's one of the trails in there, and somebody could. It's very accessible, and it's a nice. It's packed down, so we're hoping to try to make the best of it and make it as accessible as we can. So we'll have to.
Nice hemlock area in there, right?
It's
by the brook.
beautiful,
It was,
right? Yeah. There's all kinds of attractions in there. It's very, very.
And those trails are actually all, you can actually see the maps for those trails if you go onto My Map.
Yeah.
If you go on the town website and pull up the My Map function, and you zoom in over here, and you have the right layer turned on the left-hand side, you can actually see this. These were all these trails were GPSed years ago.
It's
by,
great.
Eagle Scout projects
Right.
and AmeriCorps projects, and those data layers are there, and you can actually, even if you just do the orthophoto, you can actually sort of get the remnants of,
Yeah, we can see
this roadway that you're talking about. You
Right.
can just sort of see it.
Yeah.
If you pull on Google.
Right, and that's what, a lot of what we've been doing now is working from the other end, from West Street, to kind of make our way back toward Andover Street, toward behind the VFW, and sort of where this would come out. And yeah, I mean, you can see some of the old signed markers and things like that. But this is sort of a low-hanging fruit type of a project, where this was already an existing place that had the maps, that had the trail marking. The trails are there; they just need to be cleaned up. So with a little bit of work, you can really make this something that people would notice and say, "Wow, hey, look what Georgetown's doing for their open space."
And just as an aside, this was, I believe, the first grant that Georgetown ever got for open space. This was the Lufkinsbrook Conservation
Lufkinsbrook,
Area.
right, yeah.
And it was, I don't remember the name of it, there are
Water-
other people
yeah.
that can, but this was the first one that we ever got.
Right.
Arthur Rossio for the water department pushed this one through,
Okay.
just to protect the water supply.
Yep, that's basically what it does.
Right.
It's a great area. It's a shame we can't access it anymore, but
Yeah. So it's.
sounds like we're gonna get there.
I think we are, right. And this is sort of, this gives you where where the truck's parked, you can see is sort of right in front of that is where the access point is. And so I just put this in so you can see how close it is to where the town line is. That's the entering Boxford sign. So you can kind of see where the proximity to the town line is. And then just behind the truck there, right in the foreground, is that access point. And as I said, this is sort of the the
other end, right?
Yeah, right. This is the other end, and so this is where we started working with Quinn Lankshire, who's a senior at Georgetown High this year, and he's got his Eagle Scout, finished his Eagle Scout program, and so he did a project for us. We said, hey, we want to improve access in there into Lufkin's Brook, and we want to get some signage, and so he built this sign as part of his Eagle Scout project. We went through there and cleared out a lot of this brush so that you can get in there and park. And then we cleared the first quarter mile that went in until you get to Lufkin's Brook. And then Quinn and his friends at the Boy Scouts constructed this footbridge that goes over it. So it's just a great asset now, and you're not slogging through the mud, and you're not going to have all kinds of erosion and things like that. Once people start using this, you don't want people to be walking through the wetlands and the streams and things like that. So if you look to the left, if you're standing on that bridge and to your left-hand side, the brook goes down toward West Street, and there's a beaver dam right there, a really old established beaver dam that's beautiful. And then it trickles through there and then goes through where it's all an old maple swamp. And we're thinking maybe in the future we can put some wood duck boxes up there and involve kids from the Boy Scouts, from the schools, whoever wants to get involved with these types of projects. And they're great, and it makes it just adds so much value to these places and makes them so much more accessible. And you can see this is standing on the beaver dam, sort of looking up toward Andover Street. You can see that old maple swamp that was flooded in there from the beavers. But there's all types of land on that left-hand side that goes to Andover Street, and to the right-hand side that goes to where that new access point would be, and that would open all that up to people. And it's just it's a pleasant walk. So, hopefully we can get the support for the people at town meeting to provide the money with us, partnering with our folks in town here, the Conservation Commission and the Highway Department to get this done and keep things moving here. And so just to summarize, just $45,000 for the two tasks, and with a 10% contingency of $5,000 to round it off to $50,000. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions from anybody from the board? Go for it, Gary.
Just
Please.
as much a question or a comment, and that it's good that you're doing this for another reason. Years ago, a lot of these spaces had, I always call them logging roads, some call them fire roads, tote roads.
Yeah.
And and you had access to your forests in case of a fire situation or anything.
Right.
And a lot of that has gotten forgotten and overgrown. And it is, someone brought up at finance meeting about that area, and so just to have that type of, I hope that it will be large enough that some type of forest vehicle could get through there if needed. 'Cause,
Yeah, this-
and we've got other areas in town that really, that as the town gets, I think we have a responsibility to have at least access into there in case of something of that sort.
Right.
I mean, I remember a large one down on the Fish and Wildlife area off of Willow Street. I can't remember how, but that thing burned once all summer. They were taking tanker trucks in there
Yeah.
to try to maintain it.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, this is a fairly, some places are easier access than others in this Lufkin's Brook area, but for the most part, it's a flat, firm, wide trail. So you could get.
well, it's amazing how the land can recover itself. Because I mean, from what
Right.
that thing looked like back in the 50s to what it is now, it's, it just shows you how land can
You did bring up a good point. A lot of those fire roads, they got 2 telephone poles now in, keeping trucks from going in, but, I mean, when we go up
And what happens is they get overgrown, and then
Well,
you can't get in there at all.
in Tamworth, New Hampshire, the town next is called Brownfield because it burned down there was a major fire. It may only happen every 40 years, but, because it's only happens in this area every 40 to 50 years, we don't think about it until it happens.
Right.
But you're right, that would be a proactive thing to do, is make sure some of these fire roads, they don't have the stones in front of them at least, that if they had to get in there with a vehicle, they could. Because I had the same thing going down in Martel Way when we go, the land we have in Martel Way, there's an old fire road there that's non-accessible right now. But it could be. It would be very simple to.
Yeah, so I mean, this, again, with our open space plan, we've got all kinds of priorities on how to gain access and look at preserving or conserving certain areas for particular purposes. But with our trail linkage analysis that we did right now, I mean, so this is sort of really the first step in trying to move forward with that. And
Yeah.
so then trying to get people's ideas on who wants to tackle what. And so maybe whether it's more money or using existing money that we might already have or from other sources to try to rehabilitate the access points and the linkages between some of these other areas, whether it's for fire prevention or what have you, or just for passive recreation. And so that's the thing going forward. And who's gonna maintain that? Maybe there'll be stewards for these particular places, groups of people who want to volunteer on a Saturday afternoon, or it's the Boy Scouts who want to go in there and make sure the trails are clear. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for people to get involved, and if there's other needs that work within the same principles that we're trying to do with our master plan and our open space plan, then we can certainly consider
Other
that.
towns have it like Bolt, other towns have it, we don't yet. There's other towns have people that are constantly going in the forest and maintaining them.
Yeah.
West Boxford has the Bolt, I think it's called Bolt,
PTA Bolt.
yeah.
Right.
So it's all, we should,
Yeah, Raleigh, actually, the Concom agent lives in a house on the land, and he has, we were down there helping him clear out paths, making new paths, but they have a road that goes all the way through, end to end, their conservation land over there.
nice.
Yeah, it is nice, yeah, and until we discovered the trail over here, that's where we walked the dog all the time, because there was nothing around here.
All right.
Yeah.
People don't realize what's here. I mean, we've got a lot of
Yeah.
state land, we've
Yeah.
got a lot of town-owned parcels, and so it's just a matter of
Getting it,
getting people to realize what's out there and then making it accessible.
making it accessible,
You
yes.
have to get into it, that's the
You have to
problem.
get
You
into
have
it,
to get
yeah.
into it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the audience? Peter, thank you very much,
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
not just for the presentation, but for the hard work you're doing. East Main Street Park, Jimmy, I'm gonna
Sure.
hand this one off to you. You want your mouse there?
So,
Go for it, buddy.
just to give you a summary, East Main Street
Hey,
Park.
introduce yourself. This is a public
I'm sorry.
hearing, buddy. We have formalities, protocol here, pal.
I'm Jim Demento from the Georgetown Park and Rec. We started East Main Street Park in 2008. One of the benefits of starting in 2008, we're getting quotes that were basically, 70 cents on the dollar. Before we went, it took us a number of 22 planning board meetings and 7 conservation meetings later, we got the permit and we went rolling. And we've had some success. We've built the park. It has been ready to be partly used for the last 2 years. But one of the things we have to do is we have to finish it to a certain status in order to finish the planning board's permit process. So in that time between 2008 and 2017, the country's done fairly well. Instead of getting 70 cents on the dollar for projects, you're getting $1.25 per dollar. So it's becoming less and less feasible to be spending money at this time on this park but we want to get it to a point that we can open it and have everybody in town use it. So the request is, the amount of money we are requesting at this town meeting is to finish the park and open it. And it will not be finished to the state to which we originally permitted it, but it'll be pretty close. We'll have a parking lot, we'll have some fields, we'll have the dog park. With the hopes that in the future, if, we may be able to do the rest of it in trickles over the next 10 or 15 years. So I want to go through, do I just click here?
Just once it'll go.
So the the additional funds request is just to let's see.
That's
Yes.
what, remember?
So we got a cost, we got an estimate from the engineers to finish the project. And we went out and we've actually, based on that, it's $203,000. We had some money in our fund to do that, but we needed to supplement the money. What we're planning to do, originally we had a skateboard park and some other stuff here. All we're doing now is we're doing the parking lot, and we're turning this into a green space now to get the park open. Part of the request is to go back to the planning board and request a alteration of our original permit to just put in the parking lot as was originally designed, not put in the skate park at this point, put in an area that will be possibly an area you could in the future if someone wanted to get into it. But it would allow us to close the project and open the park. This part of the main part of the park, which is the fields and the dog park, has been ready to be used for the last 2 years, pretty much a year, but it could have been open for 2 years. So it's been sitting there idle, waiting for this project to get closed. And so we have, we originally went out to bid on the projects. We've got a number of different quotes here. This was compiled by Gail as part of the bid the bid costs. It's interesting that they have run anywhere, from $242,000 to $462,000.
These are the quotes that you got back from the contractors when you put it out to bid, Jimmy?
Yes, these are the quotes we got back from the contractors. So there is a range. Looks like the guy at 462 is going to do pretty well. But based on the bid package that they got, these were the quotes we got back. We didn't have the money to award it to enough money to award it to anybody, but we know the range of the cost when we go out to bid the next time.
What do you think about the validity of some of those bids? I mean, that's a wide range.
Actually, that's not a wide range. On the last time a bid, we had some quotes. We accepted the $420,000 quote from Mantor and Byfield. We had a quote for $1.3 million from French in that area. So people, if they're not interested in the project and it's bidded, it's pretty amazing what you see for what. And the thought is, if someone was to accept that 1.3, I mean, it is. These bid packages run, multiple pages and multiple complexities. A lot of people don't bid on them. Some of them don't get into it too deep, and they just throw a number down, thinking, well, if I get the project, I've just made a lot of money. It's amazing. It's part of the learning process that you. But the way the state works is you get multiple bids in, and you hopefully you'll get one they'll cluster around a certain number, and. It's interesting. Yeah, it's like you said. I was amazed, but this is probably my 10th or 11th project to go out to bid with. So now I'm kind of, well, that's the way the system works. Okay, you kind of get numb to it, but you're right. It is. If the bid, there's a lot to that though. The bids are very complex. Sometimes bids will go out not complex or very complex, and it all depends on what's in that bid package and what's being called out, what they can put a number to and what they can't. Sometimes the wording is difficult and they just throw a number down, you know.
Jimmy, could you tell us what we just saw? Was that an agreement?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you go back?
Sure.
So we actually, so what we did is we had, we've gotten
Up one?
so what we did is we had Gail on retainer for a certain amount of money to finish this project. And when the scope of the project changed, we went back to them and said, you know, what's this gonna cost us? You know, and so it's costing us an additional $10,000 to give them for engineering, to go back to the planning board, do the new bid package. So they submitted the bid package. They're gonna go over it again for the final bid. And they're gonna go back to the planning board and require an alteration of our plans that we originally submitted to the planning board. And if the planning board accepts that, we will go out to bid with that plan, which they have done all the documentation for. And that money won't be attainable till July 1st, so sometime on July 1st, the bid will go out and the bids will come back and the work will hopefully start in this fall. And then because, you know, you really can't put a bid out unless you have the money in the fund to say you have it, so
The approval.
that's part of the Massachusetts bid process. So I can't really go out to bid now because we don't have the money in the fund to, has to get certified before you go out to bid that you have the money to bid. And that money won't be there till July 1st. So, I mean,
Assuming town meeting approves it.
assuming town meeting approves it. So it's a long process in that aspect. You don't want someone to go through all this process and bid on stuff and them to have them spend all the money if there's no money to, you know, you don't want them to work for nothing. So the idea with it is you certify that there's money in to do the project, and then these contractors go out and spend the time to go through all the paperwork and bid it. It works. It's not the fastest process in the world, but it works. So basically, it's an extra $10,000 if everything goes smoothly. If the planning board looks at the changes, they agree that it's time to close this project with these changes that we've requested. And we're pretty confident they'll be pretty close. You know, there might be some minor modifications, but we're hoping that we'll be pretty close. So this is the original contract that I'm waiting to sign when the town, basically, if the town approves this money, we'll sign this contract. We'll get the process going. And that's the project in a nutshell. Hopefully by next spring, they'll be able to use or late in the fall, they'll be able to use the dog park and you know, maybe even if we get.
And we'll open the park?
And we'll open the park.
Open the park and you can go down there and not have to worry that you're
So
gonna get
it won't be
arrested when you walk in
it won't
there.
be mine and Dave Showers Park, because we check on it once a week, I think, so we get to use it once a week just to check on it. It'll be actually usable by the whole town, which
You'll
will be
have a
nice.
Parking lot to drive down
The
to.
people that are doing the fields analysis, would this fit into their plans? It seems like it would.
They have it down as as fields, potential fields.
Yeah.
So, questions?
Yeah, any questions?
There's gotta,
You know, it's interesting because that's another area in town we have that at one point was mined. I mean,
Yes, that
it
was-
it was another
Sand and gravel pit for the
And you go in
highway.
there now and see the trees that have.
Yeah.
Sand and gravel pit for, the highway went through in 72, maybe, 74, and that's where they got the sand for that section of the highway.
Yeah.
So,
Any questions from the audience? I'm having trouble seeing you all out there. Thank you for hanging in. Thank you.
so we have one other open space preservation project. So in 2012, I'm gonna leave this link open. We did a historical study on Raleigh Landing. It was concerned to members of Georgetown Park and Rec and myself that we had a historical right to use Raleigh Landing since 1838. The two towns of Raleigh and Georgetown separated in 1838, and we were using the landing up until 1987. So over a couple hundred years, we were using the landing in conjunction with Raleigh, and then we were told we could no longer use it. We were a little bit unsure what our historical rights were to that landing. We had heard some of the old timers said, oh, we were guests on that landing. Some people said we were owners. We saw the act of incorporation that said we were owners in common of the landing, Thatcher's Bank, and the Clam Flats. But we weren't sure if there's any subsequent documents from the original act of incorporation that said otherwise. So we had a historical research done. And that historical research, if you see there's a YouTube video that I've posted up on YouTube that was that original meeting that was done in 2012. We had the lawyers in here giving us the historical perspective in regards, and if it basically said that we own those assets in common. Well, the two towns of Georgetown and Raleigh separated. They basically separated roads, ponds, land, but the one thing they kept in common, shared by both, was Thatcher's Bank, the Clam Flats, and Raleigh Landing. Back in those days, goods came in through the landings. You got your ships came in, you got your stuff. But it was interesting to note that if you looked at the act of incorporation that it's available online, I think you can actually get it online. They said people in Georgetown, the Georgetown elders said, to be shared and enjoyed in common. They didn't, because they recognized this was a great asset for the town of Georgetown, but by the way we're separating Georgetown and Raleigh, we're getting landlocked. So this picture here is Raleigh River. It goes out to massive salt marshes. It gets out to the Ipswich Bay. When we were kids, we would use it. We would go down during the summer, get on your boat. If you have a 16-foot boat, which we did, and you're sitting in Rock Pond or Pawtucket Pond, get on Raleigh Landing, you're an 18-year-old kid, you can be out in Cranes Beach. It's pretty safe. You don't need a big boat because you're in Ipswich Bay. So we use this asset as kids, and it's really a shame and we used to have lobster traps. But if you have a lobster traps, you got to go out and maintain them a couple times a week. If you got to do that now, you got to launch. If you don't have a launch site, you're paying $35 a launch. You're not going to get $35 a lobster and spend $105 to launch in a week. It just doesn't. But it was a great asset, and
that was the last one.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoops, I'll go back.
No worries.
So, I put a request in for $10,000 to be used for to retain the rights of the landing, and I'd like to over the next couple. I personally will try to do it every year, is to get a fund to try to convince Raleigh to establish our rights back to use the landing at least. I mean, and possibly, like you said, the Clam Flats and the other assets that are ours. I just don't understand why we're getting shut off from something that we own in common. We don't share in common, we own in common. And that's the difference. That's what the historical research established. That we are not guests, we are owners. And we're owners, and we established those rights over a couple hundred years. So even though we haven't had those rights since 1987, I think the town of Georgetown it's a big mistake not to do something about it.
So the 10Ks can be used for legal?
No, I don't. I think if we can settle this matter, give us, it's going to be in a fund to establish our rights, and it's up to this. I don't have the authority to do legal.
Well, the way that the warrant article is written, the monies would be under the control of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
For their use to use.
During
however they see
negotiations,
fit.
how they seem fit.
Whether for legal fees or other.
Well, I'll comment, like a road, like a trail through the woods, a river takes certain funds to maintain. You don't, sometimes it needs dredging, the markers need to be put in and out. I know that used to be all volunteer work, I'm not sure if it still is, but, you have to have a harbor master, the ramp needs to be maintained. Rowley used to work on, seeding the clam bed flats. They were one of the first communities around. They worked with, I think it was a Salem College, on trial things, and they really worked out. They have great clamming now in there. I worked with them at one time myself on that, so this sort of is creating a fund that, at least if like Jim says, we try to say, listen, we wanna go back, we want use, but if they say, well, here's what it's costing, well, now we're sort of trying to create a fund to help with that maintenance.
Yeah, there's no,
Or whatever it is,
yeah, I'm not saying we're not at fault in some respects, or we're derelict, but I think it's important. There's very few things, I mean, when you look at Georgetown, you can say, okay, we got the ponds, we have a great school system. If that landing is, that, right to use that landing is like one of the 10 best assets, I believe, in town. I mean, we have the state, we have a lot of state forests. And it's just a shame that over the last 20 years, people in town haven't been able to use it. At the same time, you're putting in all these, the Ipswich River's getting harder to get in the morning. They're going to, all these places that you launch, it's becoming harder and harder to get in and launch. And
It's a nice quiet river because it's sort of residents only.
Are there any questions from the board about this, or from our massive remaining audience? Jim, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jimmy.
There's one thing, Mr. Chairman, just wanted you to know that the Financial Advisory Committee approved all of these things.
Thank you, Ed, thank you for that report. Just a quick summary of all the costs, if they're all brought together. Just leave that up on the screen for a few seconds there, if we can see the screen, and that's where it is. Trust grant was 90, the housing authority lights were 31,000, the digitization was 16,000, Union Cemetery gravestones 44,000. Excuse me. Brocklebank preservation was 16,000, rec center was 27 and change, East Main Street's 200,000, Raleigh Landing is 10, and the community gardens is 50. And I know I kind of messed up the order there, my apologies. That wasn't the order you saw on there, but you're all smart people, you'll figure it all out. That completes our presentation of the 2019 CPC recommended projects for the year. Thank you, everybody. Remember, go to town meeting, it's on a Monday, May 6th. Thank you very much, everybody, for all your attendance. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I think he beat you.
He did.
Can I be a
Beat me.
little quicker on that trigger?
He beat
All in
me.
favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. And now to close the meeting, same thing again?
good job this year, guys.